Ido market buzzed with life. From the crack of dawn to dusk, traders filled the air with shouts, calling out rice prices, both local and imported. The market was a sea of activity, with laborers heaving heavy sacks of rice and beans onto carts, buyers haggling for the best price, and the scent of grain and other foodstuffs lingering in the humid air. Among the many shops lining the busy streets, Baba Toby's rice store stood proudly, his shop stocked with bags of rice, each promising a taste of home. Baba Toby was a respected figure in the market. His shop, passed down from his father, was a landmark known for its quality rice and fair prices. Over the years, his reputation had grown, and so had his customer base. Funmi, his daughter, had been helping him at the shop since she was a child. Now in her early 20s, she was deeply involved in the daily operations, managing orders, overseeing deliveries, and ensuring the shop ran smoothly. But lately, something had changed in the market. Funmi had noticed whispers among the traders, an undercurrent of tension that hadn't been there before. Prices were fluctuating unpredictably, and certain traders seemed to wield more power than others, controlling the flow of rice in and out of the market. It wasn't long before Funmi began hearing murmurs about a group of powerful traders, an inner circle, who manipulated prices and strong-armed smaller merchants into submission. Funmi watched as laborers stacked heavy sacks of rice onto carts, wiping sweat from their brows. Baba Toby's shop remained busy, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. One evening, as they closed the shop, she decided to ask her father about the rumors swirling around the market. "Father, I've been hearing things. Some traders say there's a group of people controlling the market, setting prices, and using force and threats to make others play by their rules. Is it true?" Baba Toby looked at her, his expression grim. He sighed heavily, setting down his spoon. "Funmi, there are things about this market that you don't know, things I've tried to shield you from. But if you're asking, then I can't hide it anymore." Baba Toby's words hung heavily in the air, and Funmi waited anxiously for him to continue. "When I first started working in this market, things were different," Baba Toby said, his voice tinged with regret. "The market wasn't as big or as chaotic as it is now. Back then, a small group of powerful traders controlled everything. They dictated who could sell, who could buy, and at what price. They took a cut from every transaction and punished anyone who refused to cooperate." Funmi's eyes widened. "And they're still here, controlling everything?" Baba Toby nodded slowly. "They never left. Over the years, they've only grown stronger and more secretive. They control the supply of rice coming into the market, forcing smaller traders like us to pay them if we want to stay in business." Funmi's heart raced. "But father, we can't just let them get away with it. Isn't there anything we can do?" Baba Toby shook his head. "It's not that simple, Funmi. They're dangerous people, and they have connections everywhere, both in this country and outside. If you cross them, they'll make sure you regret it." Funmi sat in silence, her mind racing. She couldn't believe her father had been living under the shadow of this corrupt group for so long. But one thing was clear. Something had to change. She couldn't stand by and watch as their family business and the entire market was controlled by a group of criminals. The next morning, as Funmi opened the shop, her thoughts were still racing. She couldn't ignore what her father had told her. There had to be a way to expose the inner circle and free the market from their grip. But how? As she arranged the bags of rice in the shop, her mind wandered back to the other traders she had seen whispering in the market. Perhaps they were also feeling the weight of the inner circle's control. If she could rally them together, they might stand a chance. Later that day, Funmi spotted Kunle, one of the laborers who worked for many of the traders in the market. He had been around for years and seemed to know everyone. If anyone had information about the inner circle, it would be him. Kunle, Funmi called out as he passed by the shop, carrying a sack of rice on his shoulder. Can we talk for a moment? Kunle set the sack down and walked over, wiping sweat from his brow. What's on your mind, Funmi? I've been hearing things about the market, Funmi said carefully. About a group of traders controlling everything behind the scenes. Do you know anything about it? Kunle's face darkened. He glanced around before speaking in a low voice. You're treading dangerous waters, Funmi. Those people, they're not the kind you want to mess with. They've got their hands in everything. Imports, pricing, distribution. If you're not careful, they'll come after you too. Funmi frowned. But isn't there something we can do? We can't let them keep controlling the market like this. Kunle sighed. I don't know, Funmi. People have tried to fight them before, but it never ends well. They've got connections with powerful people, and they're not afraid to use force to keep control. Funmi's mind raced. She had suspected it was bad, but this was worse than she thought. Still, she couldn't back down now. She had to do something, even if it meant taking a risk. That evening, Funmi returned home, determined to confront her father again. Father, I've been talking to people in the market. Kunle says the inner circle controls everything, even the imports. How have they been able to get away with this for so long? Baba Toby sighed. They've built a network of connections over the years, Funmi. They've got people in high places, officials who look the other way, and anyone who dares to stand up to them. Well, let's just say they don't last long in the market. Funmi clenched her fists. We can't just sit here and let them destroy everything. Their greed is making the final consumers pay more. There has to be a way to expose them. Baba Toby shook his head. It's too dangerous, Funmi. I've seen what happens to people who try to fight back. They lose everything. Funmi was quiet for a moment, her mind working furiously. But what if we don't fight alone? What if we can get other traders to stand with us? Baba Toby looked at her, his eyes filled with worry. You're playing with fire, Funmi. Be careful, or we'll get burned. But Funmi had already made up her mind. She wasn't going to let the inner circle control their lives any longer. She would find a way to fight back, no matter the cost. Over the next few weeks, Funmi quietly began talking to other traders in the market. She approached them carefully, asking questions to gauge their willingness to stand up to the inner circle. Many were afraid, just as her father had warned. However, a few traders shared Funmi's determination to take back control of the market. One of those traders was Mama Risi, a no-nonsense woman who had been selling rice in Ido market for decades. She had seen the rise of the inner circle firsthand and was tired of their corruption. I've had enough of those thieves, Mama Risi said, her voice firm. They've taken too much from us. It's time we stood up for ourselves. Together, Funmi and Mama Risi began building a small group of traders who were willing to fight back. They met in secret, discussing their plan to expose the inner circle and break their hold on the market. One evening, after a particularly tense meeting with the group, Mama Risi pulled Funmi aside. There's someone you need to meet, she said, a journalist named Fred. He's been investigating corruption in the markets for years. If we can get him on our side, he might be able to help us expose the inner circle. Funmi nodded. How do I find him? I'll set up a meeting, Mama Risi said. But be careful. If the inner circle finds out what we're planning, they won't hesitate to come after us. The next day, Mama Risi arranged for Funmi to meet with Fred at a small cafe on the outskirts of Lagos. As Funmi sat at the cafe, waiting for Fred to arrive, her heart raced. She knew this was their best chance to bring down the inner circle, but the risks were growing by the day. Fred arrived a few minutes later, a tall man with a calm demeanor and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. He greeted Funmi and sat down across from her, his expression serious. "I've heard about what you and Mama Risi are doing," Fred said. "You're brave, but you're also in dangerous territory. These men are powerful, and they won't go down without a fight." Funmi nodded. "We have to expose them." Fred leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I can help you, but we'll need more evidence. We need something concrete, something that will make it impossible for the authorities to ignore. If we don't build a strong case, they'll find a way to bury it." Funmi took a deep breath. "What kind of evidence?" "Documents, recordings, anything that proves they're controlling the market and breaking the law," Fred said. "It won't be easy, but if we can get enough, we'll have a chance." Over the next few weeks, Funmi, Mama Risi, and Fred worked tirelessly to gather evidence against the inner circle. Funmi kept her ears open in the market, listening for any information that could help their case. Fred began digging through records, looking for financial irregularities that would link the inner circle to illegal activities. The more they uncovered, the clearer the picture became. The inner circle had been manipulating the market for years, controlling the flow of rice and keeping prices high while forcing smaller traders to pay bribes. They had powerful allies in government and used their connections to avoid scrutiny. But even as they gathered evidence, the danger grew. Funmi noticed men watching her in the market, following her movements. One night she received an anonymous phone call, warning her to stop investigating or face the consequences. Despite the growing threats, Funmi refused to back down. She knew they were getting closer to exposing the truth, and she wasn't going to let fear stop her. With Mama Risi and Fred by her side, she pressed on, determined to see the fight through to the end. Funmi couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her father's warning than he was letting on. Baba Toby had always been an honest man, hard-working and respected in the market. But his words carried a weight that left Funmi restless. Why would he want to avoid this topic if there wasn't something deeper at play? That night, as they sat down for dinner, Funmi decided to press further. "Father, you said there were things from your past that I don't know. What did you mean by that?" Baba Toby looked into her eyes, his gaze softening with a mixture of regret and concern. He set his spoon down and took a deep breath. "Funmi, when I first started out in this market, things were different. There were fewer traders, fewer shops, and competition was tough. There was a group, those same people you've been hearing about. They controlled everything, from the prices to the supplies." He paused, and Funmi felt a cold chill run through her. "What did you do, father?" she asked quietly. "I had no choice," he continued. "To survive, I had to play by their rules. They promised protection, more customers, and better access to rice if I followed their lead. But it came at a cost. They demanded a cut of my profits, and if I refused, they made sure business slowed down. After a few years, I left them. I couldn't take it anymore. But even now, they have a grip on this market." Funmi's heart raced. Her father had been part of this hidden network, and now it made sense why he was so cautious. But that only strengthened her resolve. "Father, we have to do something. We can't let them keep controlling everything." Baba Toby shook his head. "It's not that simple, Funmi. They're dangerous people, and if you get involved, it could bring trouble to our family." Despite her father's warning, Funmi couldn't let the matter rest. She knew that if she didn't take action, the future of their business and the market would continue to be dictated by this shadowy group. Over the next few days, she quietly began gathering information, observing how the inner circle operated and who was involved. One morning, Funmi spoke with Samson, another laborer who had worked at the market for as long as she could remember. He was known for being trustworthy and had close relationships with many of the merchants. She approached him, knowing that he was another person aside from Kunle, who could help her with information about the market. Kunle had stopped giving her information after he noticed he was being watched and followed. "Samson, can I ask you something?" she said, as he paused by the shop to rest. Samson smiled at her. "Of course, Funmi. What is it?" "I've been hearing things about a group of traders controlling the market behind the scenes," Funmi said cautiously. "They manipulate the prices and make it hard for the rest of us to survive. Is it true?" Samson glanced around, making sure no one was within earshot. He lowered his voice. "Funmi, you're not wrong. Those men, they've been in control for years. They call the shots. Who gets to sell, who gets to buy, and at what price. They control the importation of rice and make sure smaller traders like your father pay to keep their businesses afloat." Funmi's heart sank. Why doesn't anyone speak up? Why do we all keep quiet? Samson shook his head. Because they're powerful, Funmi. They have connections in high places, politicians, law enforcement, and even suppliers overseas. Anyone who tries to stand against them ends up losing everything. I've seen it happen before. Funmi clenched her fists. She knew the risks, but she couldn't sit by and watch her father's livelihood and the livelihoods of others be dictated by a group of corrupt traders. "We can't let them keep doing this, Samson. There has to be a way to stop them." Samson gave her a sad smile. "You've got a brave heart, Funmi, but be careful. If they find out you're digging into their business, they won't think twice about coming after you." The next day, Samson called Funmi to a corner to give her useful information about the investigation. For days, Funmi wrestled with the information she'd gathered. Her father's warnings echoed in her mind, but so did her growing sense of responsibility. She couldn't ignore the injustice happening in Ido Market. The traders who worked hard every day deserved to have a fair chance, and the customers deserved better than the inflated prices caused by the corruption. She continues speaking quietly with other traders she trusts, Mama Risi, Victor, a young trader struggling to make ends meet, and Fred, a journalist who has been helping her. Fred often came to the market to observe the goings-on. Funmi shared her concerns and gathered their thoughts on how to proceed. Each of them knew about the inner circle, but none had dared to speak out. Until now. "Funmi and I have been gathering some evidence," Fred said one evening, as they sat around a small table in a nearby cafe. "We need more evidence to document their activities, collect testimonies, and expose them in the press. If enough people see the truth, we can bring them down." Funmi nodded, her heart racing with both fear and excitement. "But how do we do that without getting caught?" Fred leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with determination. "I'll continue to handle the investigation. I've been wanting to write a story about this for years, but I needed someone on the inside. With your help and the support of other traders, we can do it. We just have to be careful." Over the next several weeks, Funmi worked with Fred to gather more evidence. She quietly observed the powerful traders as they conducted their deals, overhearing conversations and noting down suspicious transactions. Fred kept on following the money trail, uncovering more hidden accounts and illegal imports that the inner circle used to keep their hold on the market. At night, Funmi met with Mama Risi and Victor, discussing what they'd found and planning their next steps. They moved cautiously, knowing that one wrong move could expose them and put them all in danger. The more they dug, the clearer it became just how deeply entrenched the corruption was. Funmi's father remained worried. "Funmi, this is dangerous," Baba Toby said one evening as they closed up the shop. "You don't understand what these men are capable of. If they find out you're involved, they won't hesitate to come after us." "I know, Father, Funmi replied softly. But we can't keep living in fear. This market belongs to all of us, not just a few people at the top. If we don't stand up now, things will only get worse. Baba Toby sighed, his eyes filled with concern. Just be careful, my daughter. Promise me that. The day of reckoning came sooner than Funmi expected. Fred had compiled all the evidence they needed, the recordings, the documents, and the testimonies from other traders. The exposé was ready, and it was set to be published in one of the largest newspapers in Lagos. Early one morning, Funmi, Mama Risi, and Fred gathered in a small cafe to wait for the article to go live. The tension was palpable. Funmi's heart raced as she sipped her tea, her mind filled with both excitement and dread. They had worked so hard to uncover the truth, but now they were stepping into uncharted territory. What would happen when the powerful traders saw the story? How would they react? When the first edition of the paper hit the stands, it felt as if all of Lagos held its breath. The front page was plastered with the headline, "Ido Markets, Hidden Empire, Corruption Exposed." The article detailed every aspect of the inner circle's illegal activities, price manipulation, secret deals, and the exploitation of smaller traders. It included photos, charts, and first-hand accounts, leaving no room for denial. Across the market, traders gathered in small clusters, reading the paper with wide eyes and murmurs of disbelief. For years, they had suspected something was wrong, but now the truth was laid bare for everyone to see. The traders who had been oppressed for so long felt a surge of anger and hope. At last, someone had spoken out. By midday, the market was buzzing with tension. Alhaji Sani's shop, usually bustling with customers, was eerily quiet. Funmi stood at a distance, watching as small groups of traders gathered near his stall, whispering among themselves. "What will happen now?" one of the traders asked aloud. Funmi's heart pounded. She had expected fallout, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. Then, from the corner of her eye, she saw the man who had orchestrated so much of the market's corruption, Alhaji Sani, storming toward her with a thunderous expression. Flanked by two of his associates, he made his way through the crowd. "Funmi!" Alhaji Sani's voice boomed as he approached, his eyes blazing with anger. The traders around the market watched in tense silence, unsure of what would happen next. Funmi stood her ground, though her heart raced. She knew this moment would come, and she couldn't back down now. Mama Risi stepped forward to stand by her side, a pillar of strength in the face of the storm. "You think you've won, don't you?" Alhaji Sani spat, his voice thick with fury. "You think you can destroy everything I've built with a few lies in a newspaper?" "They're not lies," Funmi replied, her voice calm but firm. "The truth is out. The market belongs to all of us, not just a few who want to control it for their own gain." Alhaji Sani's face twisted with rage. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. I built this market, and I can tear it down if I have to." But before he could continue, a group of traders began to step forward, men and women who had been manipulated for years. Their faces were filled with determination. "You don't own this market," one trader said boldly. "We all do. We've been quiet for too long, but no more." Another trader, a young man who had struggled to keep his business afloat, added, "You've taken enough from us. It's time we took our market back." The crowd around them began to grow, and the murmurs of support for Funmi and the others swelled into a chorus of voices. Alhaji Sani's power over the market was crumbling before their eyes. Alhaji Sani looked around, his confidence faltering as he realized the tide had turned against him. The traders, once silent and afraid, now stood united. The strength in their collective voice was undeniable. Funmi, still standing her ground, could feel the energy shift in the air. There was no going back. You think you can defeat me with your numbers? Al-Haji Sanni sneered, but there was a hint of desperation in his voice. I have connections. I have power. You'll regret this. Before anyone could respond, a firm voice rang out from behind the crowd. It was Fred, the journalist who had exposed the corruption. He stepped forward, holding up a phone in his hand. Your threats are useless, Al-Haji. Everything you say and do now is being recorded, and trust me, the whole city will hear about it. Al-Haji Sanni's face went pale as Fred's words hit home. The weight of public scrutiny, already ignited by the article, now pressed down on him. His associates shifted uneasily beside him, clearly unnerved by the growing resistance from the traders and the presence of Fred's camera. Realizing that he was cornered, Al-Haji Sanni's eyes narrowed at Funmi. You'll regret this, girl, he hissed, his voice venomous. But without another word, he turned and stormed off, his associates trailing behind him. The crowd watched in silence as the once feared figure disappeared into the bustling market, his power shattered. A moment of tense quiet followed before the traders erupted into cheers. The sound filled the air, a wave of relief and celebration that spread through the market like wildfire. Funmi could hardly believe it. After weeks of fear and hard work, the grip of the inner circle had finally been broken. Mama Risi pulled Funmi into a tight embrace, tears of pride and joy glistening in her eyes. You did it, Funmi. We did it. Funmi smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. It wasn't just about their family business anymore. It was about restoring fairness and dignity to the market. It was about standing up for what was right. In the days that followed, Edo Market transformed. Without the control of the inner circle, prices stabilized and traders regained control of their businesses. Funmi and her father's shop flourished, as did the stalls of many others who had struggled under the oppressive system. The market buzzed with renewed energy. Customers returned in droves, no longer burdened by inflated prices. Laborers moved freely between shops, and the once secretive dealings of the inner circle became a distant memory. Fred's article had a ripple effect throughout Lagos. The exposé sparked a larger investigation into corruption in other markets, and many of the traders who had worked alongside Al-Haji Sanni were arrested or forced out of business. The story became a symbol of resistance and change, inspiring others across the city to stand up to similar forms of corruption. As for Funmi, her reputation in the market grew, not just as a capable businesswoman, but as a leader who had helped bring about change. She continued to work alongside her father, but now with a new sense of purpose. She had learned that standing up for justice, no matter the risks, was always worth the fight. One afternoon, as Funmi was overseeing the arrival of a new shipment of rice, Samson approached her, a wide grin on his face. You did it, Funmi, he said, his voice filled with admiration. The market's a better place now because of you. Funmi smiled. It wasn't just me. It was all of us. Everyone who stood up, everyone who refused to back down. We did it together. Samson nodded. That's true. And I think you've shown us all what's possible when we refuse to let fear control us. Months passed, and Ido Market thrived in a way it hadn't in years. Funmi's shop became a symbol of resilience and honesty, a beacon for traders who sought to run their businesses with integrity. And while the scars of the past remained, the future of the market looked bright. One evening, as the sun set over Lagos, casting a golden glow over the busy streets, Funmi stood outside her own shop, watching the hustle and bustle of the market with a sense of pride and peace. She had fought for what she believed in, and in doing so, she had not only secured her family's livelihood, but had also helped to build a better future for everyone in the market. As she looked out over the market, Her thoughts returned to her father's words from weeks before, about the dangers and risks. But now, she understood that sometimes the greatest risks lead to the greatest rewards. And with that thought, Funmi smiled, ready to face whatever the future might bring. In this story, we see the power of resilience, courage, and integrity. Funmi's determination to fight against corruption in her market, despite the risks, teaches us that true change happens when people stand up for justice and fairness. It reminds us that even when the odds seem insurmountable, collective action, honesty, and the will to challenge the status quo can break down the walls of oppression and create a better future for all. Thank you for watching this inspiring story of courage and integrity. If this story touched your heart, we encourage you to share your thoughts with us in the comments below. What lessons did you take away from Funmi's journey? We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel, African Tales by Africans, for more captivating stories that celebrate African culture and wisdom. And hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Your voice matters. Join the conversation.